I was thinking today about how good things are scarce. Like gold, for example. Like there's only so much gold in the world, and that's why it's so valuable, right? When you look around you and you see people's performance, you realize that. I have a friend that he's very successful, and he would tell me, people are mediocre. The average person is mediocre, and well, I guess all of us are mediocre when it comes to something. Like, for example, I mean, I'm not a good carpenter. I'm not a good plumber. My grandpa was a plumber, but I'm not a good plumber. So I'm trying to be good at certain things that I like. But I noticed that people around me, like with music, that's one example. Like, do perform like doing it right is not that easy. Like playing a song properly, for example, it's not that easy, like even simple songs sometimes require you to at least be able to play the right note or sing the right note at the right time because there are rests, for example, right? So if it's like a 4/4, there could be a rest, one beat rest, or one dotted beat rest, or whatever, what have you, right? I mean, there could be all kinds of variations on that on the rhythm side, and if you're not either trained or you don't have, well, a good amount of practice, a good amount of hours that you've put in, you're probably not going to do it too well. Because, even seasoned people require time. They got to practice, they got to rehearse the songs. Even people that are seasoned. So imagine an average person who's just an amateur. So it's not easy. So as I look around me, I notice how architecture and everything that is worth worthy of admiration, let's say, anything that is a sight to behold, that you can say, wow, this is something that requires some thought, some careful thought, and some careful planning, let's say, and craftsmanship. And then you look around you and you notice that some people are just cruising. Some people are just cruising, and I noticed that a lot of these people are women. Not to say that, I was reading last time that the stupidest people are men and the smartest people are also men. Well, that makes sense to me. Yeah, because I do see that the brightest and the most successful people in almost any field except fields that require beauty, female beauty, and you know what I mean, the typically female dominated fields. Well, even cooking, the best cooks in the world are men. So you do see that men outperform women, but it's a very very small minority of men. And then there's also a small minority of men that outperform women on the other side, on the side of being really really bad at something, like the criminals and the people that just amount to nothing really. Although perhaps you could say they create jobs too, because if you're a prisoner, if you're an inmate, well, that gives somebody a job. So in that sense, you're contributing, I guess. But it's still quite interesting to see that, because when I look around me, I look at women being very social, yet they're not usually high performers or high achievers, and even the ones that are nowhere near as competent as the man in that field. Like, for example, IT. I know women that are in the IT world, and they're not outperforming the best, the most competent man in that field. Let's say, I don't know, Elon Musk or all these people that are even like business people. Like you never hear of a businesswoman that outperforms Steve Jobs. I mean, or what's the other guy, the Amazon guy, and these guys are outliers, right? I don't think you find women like that. Now, on the side of beauty, that's different. You do find some remarkably beautiful women that, well, quite clearly outperform most other women, that are just average. So I guess that's where women do very well and they're remembered. They probably don't like it very much, but it is the way it is. Um, there was this expression I came across that goes something like this. It's not politically correct, I guess, but to some degree, I think it makes a lot of sense. It goes like, if women talk less, men would accomplish more. And that makes me think of well, certain situations, right? I can imagine this applying on both ends of the extreme. Whether you're a high performing businessman or a high performing criminal, if you if the girl next to you just doesn't stop talking and does not contribute to the cause, well, you're not going to achieve too much, maybe. You should probably find someone else to talk to while you take care of business, right? Um, or for example, I remember this example where there's there's a couple in line. They're standing in line to go to a club, and then there's this man who uh, behaves in an antagonistic way against them, and the guy tells the woman, just ignore him, don't talk, just leave it alone, leave it alone, don't talk, do not confront him, don't, just let it go, let it go. And the woman doesn't listen. She confronts the man, and it turns out that this guy is a top player from the underworld, let's say, and they both get deleted, right? So that's an example in which sometimes women um, resist the leadership of men, or they refuse to follow a man's lead, especially when the man is competent. I mean, if the man is not competent, that's a different story. But if the man knows what he's talking about, let's say you're dealing with a veteran in the army or in any kind of trade, I mean, it could be a carpenter. And I've been in situations where, like right now, I'm volunteering, and these women, they can barely sing, and they're mostly women. That's why I'm saying women, because they are all really women. The only man were the guitar players, and they could kind of sing. I mean, they better than me for sure, and they could kind of play. I mean, one, yeah, he was okay. He could play. He was all right. I mean, he was no Andres Segovia or no like Paco de Lucia or any of these top, heavyweights. But yeah, man, he was okay, and so am I. So, but these women just don't listen. Like you try to lead them, and they just won't listen. And then they wonder why they're single and unmarried. I mean, if it is by choice, that's fine. I know women that are single by choice, and that's respectable. That's fine. But I think a lot of these women, especially one that comes to mind, I think she's single because nobody will put up with her. Now, nobody that she's attracted to. Let's make that clear. Nobody that she's attracted to, because there are guys that will put up with her. I mean, come on. There are guys that will put up with anything, But of course, these guys are probably not the most attractive, and some of these women. This woman seems to have been an attractive woman when she was younger, and well, maybe she's used to the good cuisine, high cuisine, let's say, quality sausage. And now that she's older, well, she doesn't want to settle for less, even though she's, well, let's just leave it at that. So yeah, if you're, I mean, if you're like me, if you're anything like me, I mean, I strive to be better because I look around me and sometimes I think, man, I was watching this documentary about this band from Argentina, Vilma Palma y Vampiros. This is a band that was very their songs are very catchy, but their story is very interesting because the singer was a drummer, like me. I am a drummer. I'm not much of a singer. I may be a lover, but I ain't no dancer. Helter skelter. So, so this guy, he said, well, he was playing for a band that was more or less famous, or they were making it, and I think they broke up or whatever. And then he said, you know what, I'm gonna start my own band, and I'm gonna be the front man. I'm gonna be the singer. And his singing was pretty good actually. His singing, he has a very unique voice, I would say. Yeah, he can sing, and he's just quite a showman too. I mean, the guy has good chops. Maybe not like Mick Jagger, but the guy can do it. And I was just watching the documentary about their persistence and their story and how they never gave up and all that. And so it serves as inspiration for me because all of these bands and all of these people that achieve something and that they're truly passionate about something, they're willing to go all the way to accomplish something. It's quite admirable, I would say. And it's something that we should all admire because you look around you and people are nowhere near that kind of they don't have anywhere near that kind of dedication. uh, they just I think a lot of it is fear. We're like, hey man, this job is safe, and well, let's just push on through, man, and let's not rock the boat too much. And I guess there's some wisdom in that, but as for me, I'm trying to be a little bit disruptive, as they say. Not too much, because I don't want to end up in a frying pan. But I do want to be good at more than one thing. Although being good at one thing, it's already admirable in itself, in and of itself. But if you can be good at two things, well, that's even like look at Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney can play drums to an acceptable level, I would say. I mean, he's not a remarkably good drummer, but he's all right. He can play better than. I mean, he's pretty good. He's a very accomplished bass player. He's a great singer. He's an even greater songwriter. Of course, that's somewhat exceptional. I mean, there's only one Paul McCartney, right? Let's not kid ourselves. Still, I mean that is a role model to follow for me. Someone like that has that kind of and because as far as I know, this guy was dedicated. This guy was competitive, and he was probably the driving force, especially in the later years before the Beatles broke up. From what I've seen on that documentary, the Get Back documentary, you can see that he was probably the driving force. He was probably the guy, the one that was keeping the band together, in spite of Yoko. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that myth is true, but yeah, he was. It's like Bob Marley. I remember that I heard a story that Bob Marley was always the first one to arrive to a rehearsal and always the last one to leave. So perhaps Ronaldo. That's another example. Like there's people that are just driven. It's usually men. It's usually men. I hate to say this. I mean, I don't want to. You can think whatever you want, but it's usually men, and I think there's a reason for that because I think we know that that's the only way we're going to achieve any kind of respect by being good at something. Like Chris Rock said, pets, children, and women are loved unconditionally, and I've seen it around me, man. Like you don't see a lot of women on the streets, and if they are on the streets, they don't last too long. Either the government picks them up, or some man, some Homer Simpson picks them up. So that's not true for men. I've seen some men. Actually, there's a guy that recently expired. He was Ramon. Ramon. Well, I'll probably make a video about him later because I had a few drinks with him, and before he expired, and yeah, this guy was homeless for like 20 years or more, and the guy was just he was 80 or something. He was completely hunched over like that, like he had a hunchback, and he would walk with a suit, and yeah, the guy struck me as someone who just, he accepted his fate, so to speak. I mean, maybe, well, that's debatable whether that's fate or it's just your lack of motivation, whatever. I mean, I'm not here to debate that. But my point is that nobody was there to rescue him. And he took it like a man, for the most part, I think. Whereas I don't think you could find the female equivalent of that. I mean, women are too smart for that. Women are far too smart for that, and not just smart. Women like comfort, man. I mean, that's the only reason why we have a civilization, because men are competing for access to women, and anyway, whatever. We can go on and on about this, but it is very clear. It's very clear, and then God bless women. God bless them, because if it weren't for their beauty, man, I wouldn't be. I mean, not only for that reason, but for the most part, especially when you're younger, especially when you're young. Now that I'm older, women are more like the cherry on the cake. They're more like it's like the dessert. It's not the main dish, unless, well, she could be the main dish perhaps for 20 minutes. But you know what I mean. Like, women are no longer, thankfully, they're no longer as important to me as they used to be, because I know what to expect from women, and they're no longer um this mystery, this I cannot remember the word. I was going to use a word. Yeah, they're no longer mystifying as they used to be. At least not to me, especially because I've seen the play a few times already, and I know what to expect from them. So I thank God for that. I thank the universe for that, because I think I'm liberated for the most part. For the most part, I'm still liable to make some mistakes here and there, but for the most part, I think I'm doing fine. Anyway, I've run my mouth enough. I'm gonna go home and have a heart attack.